Hello and welcome to the Silent Evil Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I am Cameron.
We're coming back at you with our brand new year of podcasting the survival horror games and so on like that. Last year we blasted through 18 games in total. I felt that was actually a really more of an achievement more than I would have thought.
Yeah.
It felt like that would have been like, okay, in the background we'll do like one a month or something. I'm like, oh, that means we did more than one a month sometimes,
Yeah.
Granted, certain games are a little bit, quicker than others, but I was still very impressed with that. But we ended the year with Evil Within 1, which I think still is one of the top tier of the modern survival horror games out there, even if it has a little bit of a roughness around the edges. So we decided, well, you got to go into Evil Within 2 next while the story's still fresh in your mind. And this is the game that I remembered it being like, it was kind of like Evil Within, but just everything kind of done perfectly. And going back into this game, I kid you not, I can't think of anything that I don't like about it. It's just everything in there is so smooth. It's like they took everything that you liked about Evil Within 1 and then just said like, okay, we're going to make it like even better, and all the junk that you might not have liked, that's okay, that's not there, and that guy that's in the very beginning that almost like made me not continue that game, and to go like, if this is what the game's going to be in Evil Within 1, there's going to be all these like one-hit kill type stuff. Well, guess what? You come back to that guy in this game and Sebastion literally takes this dude out with a chainsaw in the most brutal way. So I felt like it was like, hey, we're gonna make the game exactly what you want it to be.
Oh yeah. There is zero doubt. I knew within probably 20 minutes of playing this game, I was like immediately texting you, going like, yep. Literally everything that I had a problem with in the first game was like fixed within the first 20 minutes of this experience, and I'm like, yeah, it's focused. It's just, I don't know. It's a wonderful experience everything that I've played in this, to the point too where it actually made me want to go do all the things and go collect all the things and explore and do all, because this game has a lot early portions of this game has a lot less linearity than the first game did, but as the game gets deeper, it starts to become more and more narrow, in terms of your path and what you're doing and all that, but just wonderful experience. I love this. And so
yeah, one thing I thought was really neat is because, I played this game initially when it came out on PS4, and that's when I kind of played through it. But when I booted it back up again, there was all sorts of new like things that have been put in throughout the years, maybe probably only a couple of years later even, or 1 year. But like they had all these bonus stuff. Like one, they had, you could turn on unlimited stamina. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's going on. Because, especially in this game, because like there's a lot of like long running things. Like where we talked about like in the first Evil Within, you almost, if you never ran once in that game, or sprinted, I guess, technically, you probably would be fine. I don't think you necessarily need it in that game. It's more just there for like panicness when you feel like, oh God, I got to get out of here really quickly.
Yep.
But this game has like, you're in like a bigger town. There's a lot of paths that are just like, you got to jog forever. And I do kind of remember that in the other one, you'd run. Okay, wait, trot, run, trot. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool they put that in there. And I don't think that's like at all like cheap, whatever, to have that. They did put some other things I saw that were like, oh, and vulnerability and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess if you need that.
If you really need to push through. No, I mean, like, because this game is like, I mean, granted, I played on casual, just to get through it, but I don't think there was a point of time in this entire experience where I was just like, Jesus, this is hard, or like, I don't know what to do, or, it's just, again, like the streamlined focused nature of it is just, I don't know, it's so good. So,
well, in this game too, I will say, because casual on the first Evil Within is more like a normal hard on like any other game, where I do feel casual on this one is a little bit on like the easier side. I was kind of, because I played through it on that too, because a lot of times I always say, if you're going to play a survival horror game over, a lot of times don't throw yourself into like the harder difficulty first. Like play the game, get accustomed to it, then up the difficulty, or else you just get to a point halfway in where you kind of screw yourself over. But yeah, and this one here, I did kind of notice, it's like, okay, you could probably play it on normal and that would probably be the right way to go. Not saying anything wrong. A lot of times casual just makes it sometimes more fun. You just get more ammo, you get more, all the other stuff that's just going to give you a better, you don't feel like
you don't feel like you're ever going to get like I said, like stuck, whereas, like I think if I were to replay this or recommend somebody on their first playthrough, like I would say play on normal. I wish that I did, because the game is I mean, like I said, it's pretty easy. There's a handful of exceptions with some boss fights and some like mini bosses and things like that, very particular enemy types, that might be like are a little bit more difficult. But for the most part, like I just steamrolled through this. And especially like, because I played like an hour of it and then I waited a couple of days and I played another hour of it and then I waited a couple of days and then finally like got onto like the night to night to night, type progression of like, 2 to 3 hours a night, just kind of plugging through it. And I think its number one quality that I enjoyed the most was just straight up its storytelling, comparatively to the first. A lot of what I'm going to talk about in this is like direct comparison to the previous game. Previous game had like a pretty good plot and story and whatnot. I thought that I loved like Sebastian's like story through all of that and him like facing his own fears and blah blah blah, and like what's the character's name? Ravik. Was it Ravik or something? This, and then we'll get into like story stuff, a little bit later. But like this game just hits it right off the bat, just like had me gripped and just made me want to know more about like, oh, where's this journey actually going to take us and blah, 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 So again, it had a lot of self-drive with that. And I very much appreciated that portion about the game. I never felt like I was pushing through just to push through,
No, that's the thing is everything about it is like every chapter is smooth, every progression, you know where to go, but it still gives you like freedom to look around and so on like that. And also the other one that I do know is this game you could tell kind of like Bethesda, who produced both of these ones, you could tell they sort of stepped in and be like, you know what, just how about you use a little bit more like Fallout style of storytelling, because the way that the characters talk, they literally have that Fallout / like Elder Scrolls, like the way it looks when they talk and so on. So there's a little bit more of that in there. Where Evil Within 1 definitely was the experimental game. That felt like Shinji Mikami came in and he's like, there's a lot of things I want to try. Capcom probably never would have let me do this, but we're going full board here. Let's just see what sticks to the wall. And if it doesn't, well, we'll find out later.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. And that's like I said, I mean, within my first 20 minutes of playing this, I'm like, it just felt the amount of focus that they had into the story that they're attempting to tell, or actually like in general, I think they actually succeeded really well, with like the totality of the story of this game and whatnot. But like another piece of it too was like, I think that Sebastion just is a much more well-rounded character in this game, and it's like they put so much more focus into who that character is, his backstory, his life, like how he got to be where he's at now and all that, like that there's a lot of revelations in the storytelling in part 2 that like really shows all that, and it just feels like a lot more mature in that regard, like it, like the franchise like grew up, and found its niche, and now it's like down that path, and I think they really succeeded at it. So
yeah, well, and then another thing too is the fact that where the other one is pretty much like a PS3 game that just happened to be on PS4 in that very early days. This one you can tell it is a full-on PS4, Xbox One game. So the graphics are definitely more dialed in. Everything's kind of smoothed out and so on like that. It's clearer to see because the other one also has kind of that grainier look to it. It's not a bad thing, but it does have that just tail end of the PS3 kind of style to it. But yeah. No, everything about this one. I mean, even you start the story off and it's just like, it starts off with like, okay, you're Sebastion, and you read all these things in the first game, like in just notes you would find by the save points, but that his daughter, he had a daughter, he had a wife and all this stuff, and then there was this tragic fire accident and so on like that, and the daughter apparently burned up in there, and you play that like initially where you go in there to find her and whatnot, and you can't find her and the house is burning down, you're getting this scene. And then I think that just wakes up Sebastian's like in a bar, and he's just reliving this. He's been kind of kicked out of the police force now, so he's just kind of just on his own, And then Kidman, the other lady that you were working with in the first game, who turned out to be working for Mobius, the whole umbrella corporation that's got this going there, has been tracking you down because she's got another mission for you you're going to have to go back in.
Yep. Yeah. And like just right out the get-go, like it's kind of like it's kind of like a it reminded me a lot of like Max Payne, like that type of, like that's the way that they push Sebastion towards, is like it very much feels like Max Payne, like just beaten down, depressed, taking, like just an alcoholic, taking pills, like that type of, like ex-cop, stuff. The parallels are actually really funny to me. But that aside, like, no, I actually really enjoyed that. that piece of Sebastion, and like him like going back through his memory of like trying to save his daughter and not being able to and whatnot, because it totally sets the tone and precedent for like what this game is. And I think a huge piece of the storytelling and plot of this game is guilt. A lot of it's just centered around guilt and him dealing with his guilt. And again, like I think they very much succeeded, and we'll get into why, like as we progress through. So
yeah, so it's like once you have to kind of go past a little bit of it. It does use that sort of a intro scenes where you're just getting storytelling stuff, and I think that's almost like the first chapter or two or whatnot. But then once it gets going, it starts rolling, then you start getting the action. And the fact that you get sold on, hey, you got to go back inside the STEM project and whatnot at Mobius, because hey, here's the thing, your daughter's still alive and she's being used to like run this thing here, and only you can save her type thing. So that sells it for him there. And this is one of the interesting concepts is when you go inside that, it's like they've made this little world inside this Matrix-like world that they got going on, and they've created this whole town here that's, supposed to be kind of like, hey, here's this town and we have all these people and so on like that. Of course, that all goes to hell, and zombies are running amok and so on like that, and there's just all kinds of chaos. And they've sent a team in before, which kind of has that almost like Resident Evil feeling, like there's Team Bravo's already been in there, so you got to go in there and you're going to find them along the way. You got a cool little hub that you're in where you're in like the police station. You got your kind of room. Of course, the nurse lady's still there from the first one. Don't even. It's like this one's like there's no explanation to why or how or anything like that. She's just there. She just comes with the program.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, like the direct parallels from the first game. I mean, like everything that if you've experienced the first game, like everything is there. Everything's familiar. Like you have your crafting station with your upgrades for your weapons and whatnot. You got your little chair at the end of the hallway that you can sit down and like actually increase Sebastion's like own personal skill sets and whatnot. Like everything is extremely familiar. Like nothing really comes as a surprise. Nothing really stood out to me per se, but again, it's refined. It feels good. Upgrades feel great in this game, honestly. Like a lot of especially like once you get past the red vial stuff, like the second tier of things and whatnot, because I feel that even comparatively to the first game, like I had way more fun looking at and strategizing, planning to upgrade skills in this game comparatively than I did to the first game. So there's a lot of cool stuff Sebastion can do.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is you got the goo that you use for like kind of like your health and sort of abilities, but then they have a light crafting system that you use for ammo and guns and so on like that. So it kind of splits it up a little bit where before you're always kind of like, okay, what am I going to use my goo on? Am I going to upgrade my gun or do I want to upgrade like health or abilities or something like that? So this one kind of like breaks that up for you and so on. And then they even add in gun-wise. I remember we talked about this on the first one, how it was kind of nice how the fact there was just one pistol, one shotgun. In this one, you do find other pistols and you do find other shotguns, but what it does is that they all stay in the exact same upgrade system. So it doesn't matter what, you just upgrade the pistol. It doesn't matter what pistol you use. So it's almost like a personal preference, which one you want. It's not like you're going to be like, oh, I got 4 different pistols I'm going to have to upgrade here at some point, No. I do think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, and again, the streamlined nature of this, like it's wonderful. Like I didn't have to think about splitting, between the silence pistol versus like maybe the revolver or something. And yeah, and I really enjoyed so another like deep mechanic that, well, I wouldn't even call it like deep, but like it's way more prevalent in this game is just stealth alone. So to play into, like you're talking about like the different weapons, like I spent a long time, like, yet again, here's another game where I just dump all my resources into the starter weapon, and whatnot, so by the time like I actually unlocked, that silent pistol or whatever, I was just like, sweet. So now I can actually play into my stealth, because I love playing like stealth, super slow and, just one hit kill, type stuff and all that. So yeah, no, like it totally played into that very well. Love all the different weapons in this game. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, and in this one too, I mean, once again, the pistol's always so good, like an Evil Within, but it's cool. They give you a pistol. Of course, you get your shotgun, you get the Magnum, you get all the classic weapons. They bring back the bow and arrow, which I think is kind of neat, because that could have been lost along the way, but I'm glad they still kind of kept that. I think they had they had like smoke bombs to it in this one. I don't know if they take away anything, but And the cool thing too is when you fully upgrade those, they also get extra abilities too. Like the smoke one literally will be poisonous gas, which actually makes that pretty effective for stuff. Of course you get the electricity ones and you get the explosives and all that stuff.
The upgraded lightning bolt one in particular, just because of its chain, you'll like shoot one enemy and it'll chain to another one, and then that'll spider out and chain to more of them. And that paired with because the other thing this game has is like a lot of environmental stuff. You can run around, kick over barrels, for like oil on the ground. You can turn on fire hydrants to spray water on the ground, and you get into these situations where it's like, you're kiting like a group of 4 or 5 mobs or whatever. You run over to that water dispenser, you tip it over, dump it on the ground, run away, pull out that bow and just shoot them with the electric bolt, and then it chains, and then next thing you know is there's 7-8 enemies just just lit up. Dude, it's so much fun. The combat in this game is just so much fun.
Yeah, no, it's so good. It's just the whole way through, and every single weapon works good. Nothing seems like a dud. I also even there's small things too, like you can pick up the bottles and you can hold on to them, because that was always kind of annoying in the first Evil Within. Is you'd go to grab, you're like, oh, I don't have it. Let me throw it away. I don't need this right now. But in this one you just store them, so you can either use them if you want for that, and then there's an ability you get later on where the bottle acts as a self-defense item, similar to Resident Evil the remake, where you'd have the knives and so on like that, or the grenades you can pop into the zombies when they grab you, which I think is really cool. And even the axe, so if you grab one of those axes, it's not like you're just running around with it. You actually hold it. Sometimes you almost forget you even have it, because it's oh yeah, because you can still pull out your handgun and all that kind of stuff along the way, But the combat's super fluid, and the fact that you also have this little town that this is kind of what you're being sent into, and they built this town up and everything like that, which really I remember the first time playing is it's just having Silent Hill 1 once again, which goes again to saying that Evil Within is definitely Resident Evil fused with Silent Hill and just all the best of both worlds combined together. But you do have a town that's like Silent Hill, where you can just kind of run around and freely explore, and especially by chapter 4 you're kind of just dropped in there and you're well, go see what you find.
And that was probably the biggest change in my opinion comparatively to the first game, was this semi-open world structure that it has in the early portion of the game anyways. I love this. This is what the first game properly needed. I wish that they would have expanded on it quite a bit more. I wish that more of the tail end of the game could have been looped back through the town and whatnot, because I missed it. There was a portion of the game where I hit maybe chapter 9, 10-ish, somewhere around there, and I'm are we going back? I left some stuff for it. You never do, and it's damn, but again, in general, the amount of exploring that I was able to do, it totally does have the Silent Hill vibe to it, the original, or even more recently, Silent Hill F, it reminded me of that too, being able to go building to building and just pick up the note, or maybe find the new item, or whatever, and then the other mechanic was really early on, you get that radio, that you can hold up, and you can search for signals all throughout this open area or whatever, and it's more or less it's your side quests, from what I could tell anyways. And the handful that I did, I didn't get anything insane out of it, that's how I got the crossbow, was so I got a weapon out of it. Majority of the time it's more you're there just to kind of get a little more flavor text about Mobius soldiers and things like that, things that are going on in the world. These ghost apparition style repeating signals are just playing over and over again until you walk up and scan it with this little scanner thing, and then it plays the cutscene and blah blah blah. So all that, I think was a really good change. I wish I wish they would have played into it, or at least allowed us to go back prior to the final of the game, to go back and really fully explore,
Yeah, no, it's one of those ones that's only there for a handful of chapters, and it's really cool because it's that's what I kind of like, is I like that mini open world. I feel you can get a lot done there. I think the second that a lot of games start to get to a really large open world, it's there can be a lot lost in there, and especially if it's either not that interesting or it just makes it feel like it's tedious. This game, none of it feels tedious. It feels like you enjoy searching around, and you're not there for so long that you get kind of bored and like, oh, here we go again. Let me run back forth. And it's like there's not really any of that. So you enjoy that part, and since they're almost only there for like, in a sense, kind of a brief moment, you kind of miss them almost. Like, you almost didn't get enough of them, but that's probably almost maybe for the better even.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah, I'd say probably like the only other thing like I would really say about like the open world, I don't know how, because like if you think about like an Assassin's Creed style world, in horror, how would you maintain like the player's attention, like, because I was like really thinking about that as I was playing this game. It's just like I don't know of a horror open world game that has worked.
Well, there's that Sony one that's kind of like a spin-off of Last of Us. What the heck's that one called? The one where you're on the motorcycle, you're a biker or whatever.
Yeah. Oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know.
The main character's name is Deacon.
Yeah, I remember that was one of those games that like when I initially,
Days Gone.
Yeah, Days Gone, because that pretty much that's your zombie open world game. But I felt like the second that game started opening up wider and wider, it was like I started losing interest. That was my only thing, is I thought it started off kind of interesting and cool, and then it started opening up, and then I was like, I feel like I'm just doing same old. Like,
you know who did open world horror really well was actually FromSoft with Bloodborne. I know you. Okay. I don't think you've played through Bloodborne yet, but
I that's the only one that I put like an hour into.
No, really? Yeah,
it's about as much as I got into it, and I was like, okay.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a. I'd consider it open world because it's a connected world, and all that. But anyways, all that.
Well, I was gonna say, is Dying Light open world?
Yeah. Yeah,
so there's that one.
Yeah, that one actually wasn't bad either. So I guess you could do it.
Yeah, it seems like there is some that have that. Like technically Fallout has horror elements to it as well too. Yeah. So that's got that in there, but yeah, so I think it could totally be done. But yeah, as I said, that's the one thing about open world games, though, is I'm so like, I feel there's only very few companies that can really do them right. Because if not, they just feel like they're just dragging you along too much. And even some of the biggest companies might drag you along a little bit more than you want. Yep. It's such it was so cool in the PS2 era to have open world. I felt past that time period, it's like, there's some certain ones on 360 and so on like that, like Assassin's Creed. But as time has kind of gone on, it's like one of those ones like, mostly if open world's in your title, I'm like, well,
yeah,
I hope you know what you're doing.
Better be really good.
It's like one of those ones. It's kind of like an RPG. It's like it's got to be like a 9 out of 10 game, or else I'm not really gonna play it. Like you can't have a mediocre RPG. You could have a mediocre action game, but you can't have a mediocre RPG.
Yep.
It's got. I'm putting too much time in this. It's got to be all there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Like that aside, I really liked our very first antagonist of this game, because we have a handful of them, and the way that this dude is presented, dude. So like I don't want to give away like the premise of like who the character is quite yet, but like one of your very first like interactions with the dude is like you see this body, and I can't remember exactly which one, so excuse me if this is not the very first body you come across or whatever, but like the one that sticks out to me is just like this soldier, and he's like in this like prism like cube looking thing or whatever, and like blood's like just spraying, like out of his neck as he's like slowly falling backwards, and then like he almost hits the ground and he like snaps back, and then he's like back into position, and then all of a sudden bam, and he starts like slowly, and blood's like spraying and stuff. I was so confused by that for so long. I was like, what am I looking at here?
Yeah, what's going on here,
Yeah, but how it plays into this next antagonist, dude, like, I love this whole section. It was so cool.
Well, plus, I think that's just a cool. There's this guy that just stuck himself into like, pretty much the Matrix here and whatnot. Yeah. And he's learned that he can like take his like art photography to like a whole new level by doing death photography. and doing it in ultra slow motion. So he's just taking all these people and just like killing them, and just has like, slow motion cameras take there, or he'll just hit it at the right moment. Like there's a part a little bit later on where there's got a big old theater group, which actually kind of reminded me like Parasite Eve 1.
Oh, I love this scene, dude.
Yeah, and then
so many
like
screenshots.
yeah, it's so badass because like he goes to set off. There's this whole theater crowd in there and whatnot. Like, and simultaneously he blows all their heads off and then takes a snapshot of it. And that's those are his masterpieces. Are these like the art of death?
Yep. Yeah, so like the whole premise like behind this character, at least like how we come to find this character or whatever, is like, again, the radio thing, and like you get this main quest to go find your daughter or whatever. That's the whole reason why we're here. You catch her signal and she's like screaming, like daddy help, so you go and you hunt this guy down and you find out that she is more or less being actively hunted by this serial killer. Oh my god, I'm gonna lose this guy's name. Do you remember this guy's name?
I don't remember. You keep talking. I'll see if I can figure out what it is.
Stefano. That's it. Okay, so it's Stefano Valentini. He's like the most just Italian dude. Yeah, no, like his whole thing is so I guess like, excuse me if I'm wrong, but from what I recall remembering about this dude is that like, he was like a part of like some extremely tragic event that like kind of warped his mind in order to want to be like this artist to like show off, tragedy more or less. And, so like all these like bodies that you're coming across, are just like his creations, his artwork, he's just this madman, of just murder, and I love this character. I thought he was hella cool.
Yeah, he's like the Andy Warhol of death photography. And he's just kind of pompous and kind of pretentious a little bit and so on. And even just like as you kind of explore more into like his area, because he'll pull you into like his certain sections here and there. It's not nearly as like almost like Carnival roller coaster as the first one sort of is, where you're like, what the hell? I just got thrown from one area to the next. But it does do a little bit of that where you pop up in certain areas. But even some of the villains that he's got in his area, because he's got like this camera oscura, like monster creature. It's got a big old long like telephoto lens from like the 1800s as its face, and it crawls on the walls and everything like that. And one thing that I think is actually kind of neat in this game is with like a lot of the bosses and enemies and so on like that, it gives you like multiple ways you can go about it. Like, and it's kind of like, it's literally up to you. Sometimes if you want, stealth it. If you don't care about that, shoot it. If you want, just run away from it. Like a lot of these enemies give you these multiple choices of like how you can deal with it. And I think that's a really neat way to go about it. Where sometimes like even in the first one, it's like, no, you got one way. You can't do that. Guess what? You restart, do it again.
Yep. No, this game leaves a lot up open to the player, and again, I think between its skill system, its just its various like weapon variety and stuff that you have, guns ablazing versus stealth style, and like the exactly what you're saying. Like the player has so many options available that. Again, I just think like it plays so much more heavily into how much more I like this game comparatively to the first, just because it is so much more well-rounded. It's just awesome. It's very good.
Well, speaking in chapter 4, when you finally get the town to go kind of run around in, did you stumble into the house? Because I kind of forgot about it until I was literally in the house again, where you release the ghost lady. I think her name's Anima or whatever. See, and that's kind of interesting. Did you ever run into the ghost lady later on?
Is this the spider lady with the black hair? Is this someone different?
She's kind of got that look, but not the lady
not
from
the boss from the first game. Okay, no.
So pretty much when you release her, you start hearing this, and it's interesting if you got the PlayStation version, because they actually use that controller microphone that very few games ever seem to use. And so she has this like kind of lullaby, and you hear it through your controller because you release her from the area. You get a little bit of backstory on kind of what it was. I can't remember exactly, but and then she's actually freed in like the world, so she's walking around. So every once in a while you'll hear this like low like la 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 la, and it gets louder and louder as you get close to her. And she's one of the only enemies you can't like technically touch that has that like one hit kill. But for the most part, it's not. You're in an open world. You just run away, like whatever. Go around. And then later on in the game, like way later, maybe like chapter 9 or something like that, there's a little bonus part where you actually have to kind of like a boss battle with her, but you don't technically battle her. You just have a stealth thing. But this one's like all you have to do. You go from like 3 blocks. Has a save point. You go 3 more blocks around, so they're save points. So like if you mess up, it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it was interesting because I was wondering that whole time, like if you don't run into her in that chapter 4 by going inside the house, does she not appear? And you're telling me you did see her.
Yeah,
you would have remembered if you saw it.
Yeah, I don't recall that character at all. So yeah, yet again, more variety. You know, so
yeah, that's kind of cool. As I said, it's probably better. You know, I think. Well, I want to say that's how you get the revolver, almost, is from releasing. But maybe you can get the revolver without her. Maybe she's just not in the way then.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't get the revolver until the game's end. Like I have to go into New Game Plus to use a revolver. That was like one of my exiting.
Was it the revolver or the Magnum?
Okay, maybe Magnum. So I never got the revolver then, because I had the pistol, I had the silence pistol. Yeah, and then I got that Magnum at the end.
Because you get the pistol from the first game when you pretty much beat her or whatever you want to say it.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, no, I just thought that was an interesting one. I was wondering, but yeah, it's kind of for even though that's generally not my favorite thing is to have those one hit kill enemies. Like she's one of those ones. It's like it's done decently with her.
Yeah. Then that actually one massive compliment I'll give this game. They're really. Outside of the recalling of that boss from the first game, I really don't remember. I don't remember ever getting one hit like at all in this game. Maybe there's an enemy or two that can do it, but anyways,
well, one thing I noticed is that there's a lot of enemies. Instead of doing a one-hit kill, they'll just do a massive damage one where you're like, oh, geez, that actually did quite a bit of damage. You better not get hit by that again. Yep. And I think that's the better way to do it. Is like, do a lot of damage so you don't want to get caught by that enemy, but you still give a little bit of a fighting chance. I think sometimes when they have just that cut scene, up, you're dead. Guess what? It's not scary. Right. It's more just frustrating. It's just like, okay, that's stupid. You didn't even give me a fighting chance. Like I had full health bar. Come on, seriously?
Yeah. Well, you and I talk about that heavily on this podcast alone. You know, like about just one hit mechanics. Just really, you don't learn a lot as the player. Like if it's like a chase scene, you know, like Crash Bandicoot style chase scene. I mean, cool, whatever. You know, like I get it in that sense, but yeah, in general, just like any one enemy just being able to just touch you or grab you or hit you or whatever, and just you die immediately. It's like. Never in any game that I have ever played where it's just like, okay, like I'm just, I won't do that again. Like it forces that on you and it brings a lot of frustration by doing that, So again, like you just said, like mass damage put me down to 1 HP. Cool. I learned that way, like I learned real quick, like you don't get touched by that thing, but plus I still have a chance in that moment,
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's how it is. I just think that like the one hit cuts to a cutscene type kill. I just always feel like it's just kind of almost like feels like lazy like programming, just not like the right way you should have went about it. There's just definitely better choices. And as I said, this one, other than that, there's technically 2 ladies that will do that. For some reason, it's just a women. Well, there's a couple women, but those ones there will do it. But like as I said, this game was designed so well that like for that one boss battle where you have to fight her. Like I said, like if you get caught by her, it's not that big of a deal. You're just trying to sneak past her as she looks a different direction. But it literally gives you like 8 checkpoints, like in like less than a 5-minute time period. So it's never that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Just okay, I'll slow down. Okay, now I'll go up. There we go. Next one. And, and I guess since you don't have to do it, and if you don't even go in that house, you don't even unlock her, so it's okay. So if you don't like her, that's fine.
Yeah. No, I'm glad. I mean, because like I said, I really dislike those types of mechanics. So I'm actually kind of glad I didn't see that character.
Well, and I'll say this: the good thing is she's not like in like the entire game where she starts following you around for like ever. It's just in like the level 4. Once in a blue moon, she'll pop up.
I gotcha.
Or when you're in the little town section, and then you don't see her again until way later. It's not like I remember it's like in Silent Hill 4. Because that game, I think, starts off extremely good. I remember when I was first playing this game, I'm like, wow, this actually might be my favorite Silent Hill game. About halfway into it, they have this stupid ghost mechanic that comes in there, and now these ghosts are just always, like, following you around, and they're just annoying. And it was like, so it dropped that. That game literally went from being, like, out of, like, the first 4 Silent Hills to being like, man, this could be, like, my favorite one almost, to be like, no, it's number 4.
Yep.
That stupid ghost mechanic was just like, nope, like, You eventually get to like shove them back in their grave or something like that. I can't remember what you have to do, but like it feels kind of joyous because now finally that guy's out of my way. But not like that where those things didn't one hit kill you. They just were just annoying and just slow damaged you. I think when they touched you, but.
Well, speaking of like enemies in general in this game, so it takes, again, it's iterative from the original game. Like it literally, like there's so many enemy types that are just like, yep, that's from the first game, but like the amount of additional like animations and mocap and like the even just ragdolls alone in this game are just like tenfold what they were in the first game. Like it feels like a game from 2017. Like ultimately, like I really appreciated the amount of enemy variety. There's not like a ton of changes between like a standard mob versus an armored mob or whatever, but at the same time, it's like there's enough variety in the gameplay, again, between Guns Ablazing versus going in stealth and whatnot, and how you have to like adjust on the fly. So it's like you go in for like stealth, originally or whatever. You start getting like regular mob, non-armored mob or whatever. Like you start stabbing one hit kills or whatever, and then like. I'll never, like the first time I went against an armor mob, I'm like, can I one hit it or is it going to be a 2-hit? Like really, what is it? So you try your waters, and like you crouch, you sneak up behind him, you stab him in the back of the neck, and then all of a sudden still isn't dead. you gotta do it again, and he alerts everybody else, and now all of a sudden my strategy changes. Like now it's like, oh shit, now it's Guns Ablazing, like pull out the pistol, pull out the shotgun, pull out the, blah, blah, blah. I love the way that the combat works in this game and how fluid it is all the way throughout. Like I had so much fun with all of that, throughout the totality of this experience. It's very good.
Well, and they also don't have that weird feature that the first one had where they had that weird like accuracy like skill that could be improved. So just because you aim at the enemy, that doesn't necessarily mean that the gun's actually going to hit them. Yep. This one, if you point and shoot, you get the hit. Yeah. If you miss, it was your own fault.
Yeah, exactly. And I assume that you probably experienced this too. So again, like playing on PC or on Steam version, anyways. Playing with the controller, aim assist is very sticky in this game, like very sticky, to the point of like if I could see like a pixel of a shoulder, like sticking out behind a wall, or like Sebastian's just like locking onto their head, and it's like, what? Like that's super weird. So I commonly, so like I spent all my points to like upgrade that pistol, so by the end of the game when I had the maxed out pistol or whatever, you have those additional abilities on your pistol to like, increase critical hit chance or whatever, and by the time you get that level 2 one or whatever, it's like majority of like standard mobs, like your very low end mobs or whatever, because of that snap point to the head or whatever, I was just like snap bang, and just just like the heads were just spraying everywhere. So sick, dude. So much fun. But again, that's deep into the game. That's 6-7 hours into the game by the time you get to that point. So
yeah, no. It does definitely have a very snappy like. I actually turned it off about like a couple chapters into. I'm like. Because one, I was playing it on my like New Game Plus mode because I like mostly I never get to enjoy the New Game Plus. I feel like on so many games, but I was like, I'm going to try to just unlock everything and as much as I can and get some extra achievements and so on. Because I contemplated, I'm like, do I want to play a fresh file on the Xbox and just get those achievements there, or should I go to the PS4? I was like, you know what? I got probably a New Game Plus. I can max out all the weapons and all that kind of stuff throughout it. Okay. So that's why. So I decided, I'm like, I'm going to take aim assist off because my guns were already more leveled up than I thought they were. I thought I was gonna be like Evil Within 1, where I'm like, it'll probably take me like almost maybe 3 rounds to fully max everything out here. But this one, it was like, okay, it's not going to take that long to get them all totally maxed out. But it still was kind of nice to be able to utilize some of that stuff. But so I just went with that just to add a little, because my guns were a little bit more upgraded from the start. I was like, that'll give me a little bit more of a challenge that I have to manually point at there and so on. But this one works really well, where I felt like in the first one, the aim assist kind of comes in handy for the fact that like you just don't have that much ammo, so that like every shot that you miss is kind of a pain, where this game gives you a lot more extra tactics that if like, worst case, so there's other things I can do if I miss,
Well, so that's going to bleed into my next points here. So, again, playing on Steam, like obviously with like PC games, you usually get like a lot of control within your settings and whatnot. I text you a couple nights ago, like I think I was on the night before I actually finished it, and I go into my settings or whatever, and the only reason why this even triggered is because I got a DirectX crash. happened. And I was like, what is going on? So like the dialogue box popped up or whatever, and it had something to do with, so I'm trying to stream it to Discord for my buddies to watch me play, so I'm trying to stream to Discord, and there's something with the idTech engine, that version, the driver that I have installed on my graphics card. There's a combination of something in there that my computer just hated or whatever, and it just like, and more or less what it ended up being was the Discord overlay, the like overlay for the program. So anyways, after killing all that, it made me go into my settings because I was messing around between full screen versus non-full screen, like borderless or whatever. And then I recognized it right then and there that like, oh my God, this whole time I've been playing in 16:9. I just thought that the game was like just designed like that, like most older PC games are, A lot of them don't have ultra wide support. This one does, so like I change it to ultra wide, so it's 21:9 at this point, and it just goes, and just like stretches the screen out, and I'm like, holy shit, like I can actually see now. And then I notice even
it's starting to look like an Uncharted.
Yeah, I know. And then I noticed even deeper, I'm like, dude, there's a field of view slider in here. Like, so I slide that thing all the way out to 90, dude. Like, you can see in frame, like all of Sebastian's body. Like, it's crazy when you have that thing fully, like in full, 21:9 and like fully sucked out. Like, you can see the totality of his character model. It looks goofy as hell. Like, it's stupid, like you shouldn't play like that. So like, I eventually like toned it back down, and I brought it back down to 70, which added like a bit of wide, like wider field of view or whatever, which also helped with like my combat. I stopped dying so much when
because you could see everything.
Like, well, yeah, because it was zoomed out. It was my number one problem with the first game, especially ADSing, because like when you would aim down sights, the camera would like almost just focus on Sebastian's hands. Like his hands were in frame or whatever, and like the camera's like super zoomed in, and it's like, like I don't like this. It's claustrophobic. So like being able to suck everything out like that, and like kind of blow it up a bit, worked better for me. I do agree with you. Like even where I landed at, at the 70 field of view at 21:9, like yeah, it was still pretty stretched and like weird looking, but I could see everything.
Yeah, you could definitely see, because the normal view, I guess, is like it's like on Sebastian's lower back to like his head. So he literally takes up like almost like a third of like the screen, and like. I guess it's really no different than Resident Evil 4, I guess, like that too. But I think it's Resident Evil 4 just has a more straightforward aiming system. Like, it's just lock on, stand there, aim, where like Evil Within, it's got a lot more like, you got double stick action, it's spinning around all kinds of camera angles and whatnot. Also, speaking of which, did you ever try the first person mode in this one?
No, I did not.
I flipped it on just for a moment because I wanted just to see what it was like. It actually was kind of fluid. It was better than I thought. Like the only downfall is like these are always those things. Is like the camera turning it's not, because I like that to kind of whip when I'm playing a first person shooter. Like if I hit left or right, but instead it turns the same way that it does in third person, which is not a big deal there. But so it felt a little bit like sluggish in that sort of sense. Not so bad that you probably couldn't get used to it, but I think it was kind of neat. Once again, this game came out around the same time as Resident Evil 7, so I feel like there's a handful of these things where they're like, okay, well, we got a first-person mode as well, too, in the same way that they're like, what was the other? There's another. The engine as well, too, is the way that they call it. So it's like it's an id engine. But they call it the STEM engine or whatever. So it feels like, they want it to be like the RE engine type thing. I see a lot of those kind of like almost like, I don't know if they're just poking fun at that or whatnot. Yep.
Yeah. I have no idea. But yeah, this that was another comment that I had tossed at you via text. Was like the day that I recognized that this is an idTech engine, and then you start to see like the parallels, to other games of the time, because like directly before this, like in terms of idTech, Doom 2016 had came out, and then I started thinking about it through the Doom 2016 lens, and I'm like looking at the comparison of like 1-to-1 like shadow rendering, lighting rendering, like texture mapping, like all that type of stuff, and I'm like, holy like, dude, that's why I understand. That's why I recognize this. It's like, it's the id engine. It's like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Okay. So yeah.
Well, it's something of like what I appreciate from back in the days when everybody had their own engines, is every single game looks so unique from each other. Because that's kind of about the only downfall to like when you're just using like id and Unreal and all that stuff is all the games start to kind of look the same. And I remember noticing that just from playing like Gears of War when that kind of came out, to being like, oh, Batman Arkham Asylum, it really just looks and feels like Gears of War, just your Batman, you know. And so many of the other games too, they had the same kind of graphical look to them and so on like that. All they didn't feel as unique. It's not the worst. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but there's just a little bit of that uniqueness that's missing. It's like when you look at games like in the 90s, especially like where everybody has their own engine, even if it's still like a survival horror game, like Silent Hill looks way different than Resident Evil, that looks way different than Alone in the Dark and all that kind of stuff, because everybody has their own idea of how they're going to run with it.
Yeah, no, and this game works very, very well. Like comparatively even to the first game. Like the first game, like it works on PC. It's a little finicky. I did have a handful of crashes with the first game, but this one in general, like I said, I had that one DX error just once, and I'm pretty confident because ultimately, like after messing around with settings or whatever, like I just turned off Discord overlay, and then the game worked fine from there, you know, for the rest of the time that I was streaming. So anyway, you know, some random oddities, I guess, you know, with some like newer software, you know, that's messing with it, but ultimately the game works and operates wonderfully. I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, it was kind of cool because even on the PlayStation, either I didn't notice back in the day, or these were some of the update things that they had over time, is that they actually had a lot of options for like changing everything around in that one as well too. You know, you could literally set the thing to like your frame rate was just unlimited or whatever the PlayStation I guess can handle, or locked at 30. And so I just put on the unlimited one, see what happened. And you know, it looks solid on that. You know, they still had like that, if you want that ultra wide screen that I know Shinji Mikami really liked for the first one, that like you know, they took out, was like the 240 aspect ratio, which still kind of, I get it, if it makes it look like a movie, you know. I'm surprised that Hideo Kojima didn't do that for Metal Gear Solid. Just seriously. That sounds like something he would have done, but you know, that there. But there was a lot of little miniature things that you could dial in this game that I just for some reason don't remember. But you know, it's been a moment.
Yeah. So anyways, I think you know, like we were kind of getting at, you know, like this early portion of this game, like we're exploring through Union, you know, like this town or whatever, looking for our daughter is like the primary premise and all that, and then we run into this like serial killer looking dude or whatever, and I loved the whole like going through the mansion searching for this man, you know, like talk about cool psychological horror, because like you're walking down a hallway, there's a picture at the end of the hallway, like a painting or whatever, you know, you walk up, you interact with the painting, Sebastion starts to like freak out, you know, like the screen starts going all crazy and like shaky and blah blah blah, you know, and then like you just hear like this large like thud, you know, and then like you turn around and like the door that you just walked through at the end of the hallway that you thought was there is now a mile long, you know, and like, and it's just door, you know, and like there's like lights shifting, you know, like turning off in the distance, and just like this whole section of just back and forth down these hallways, just touching paintings, and like, you know, meanwhile, you know, Stefano's just like yelling at you like the whole time, you know, talking to you about like how he's gonna murder you and blah blah blah, that and the other, you know, and like I loved this, dude. Like it was such a cool like again, like just the way that they're able to just like pick a theme, pick a tone, and just run with it and do it so solidly. The totality of like searching for Stefano, this whole section was like probably one of my more favorite parts of the game. Like I've really, really enjoyed it.
No, I think that probably is the most unique kind of boss or whatever you want to sort of say they have in it, the villain. And even the fact that like when he'll surprise up on you and he'll take a picture of you like right in the moment, and that's like when he's just capturing, it's just you and you're like either pissed off look or like what the hell, come on my way, I got a mission to do kind of thing. You know, and just like him setting things up, and just the fact that, you know, balanced with being in the town of Union and whatnot, running around there, and then you have this, you know, weird, strange, like ultra artsy kind of you know, look going on with everything, and just the fact that like sometimes you'll see certain like pictures and so on like that, but then you'll run into the actual like, you know, photography set piece of where he took that picture and so on too. You know.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious too, like, so like spoilers off the table at this point. So, you know, like your daughter's there acting as the core of what we knew to be what Breivik was in the first game or whatever, you know. So your daughter's acting as the core. a lot of like what we find out like through so like as Spence said at the start, like, you know, your daughter's in STEM. Mobius sends in like Mobius agents or whatever to go find her, I guess, or something. Like there's a lot of missing pieces, like going why Sebastion is going into STEM, you know, like more or less the second time. But more or less, she's the core because of her innocence and personas and egos and things like that. You know, like in her brain, she's the one that has created Union, the town of Union or whatever. Stefano's in there, and I'm not sure where he comes from or why he's there, other than he wants to control STEM, I guess, you know, like he wants to control Union. So he's there to go get your daughter, more or less, you know, like, and you're there to stop him. And like, there's a lot of like coincidental story and plot narrative storytelling here that's just like, it's just way too convenient, you know, like, you know. But I did enjoy, you know, like Stefano's whole, like I said, like him being a serial killer, him being like the chaos of what is going on in STEM. So his instability, his psychotic brain, you know, like you have one of the Mobius characters, not Kidman, but I forgot it's the Japanese, the Asian woman or whatever. She's a psychologist. Anyway, she
Hoffman
describes,
like
Hoffman. Yeah. So Hoffman describes to you about how STEM exists, you know, like with more or less like with multiple personality types, you know, like so Ravik at the start, you know, like was a multi-personality type, you know, of the first game or whatever. Now that we have our daughter as the core, she created Union, and now that Stefano is now in STEM, he's the one causing the instability. He's the one causing all the monsters to show up and all that type of stuff, you know, which then transfers to the following antagonist, which is that Father Theodore, you know, which is like a whole other religious, crazy, fanatic nut type dude or whatever, you know. But again, like there's a lot of plot holes, you know, leading into this that like I'm still questioning, I'm still researching, I'm still trying to figure out. But the premise as a whole, you know, like of personality types, like being the instability, being the evil within, you know, of STEM, you know, is actually pretty neat. I really enjoy that side of it.
Yeah, I like how Mobius just hires, for some reason, these very, like, you know, out of control mentally people and puts them inside. You know what I mean? Like, there could be probably some better choices, because then, like, the dude that's running Mobius just looks like the guy from, like, Half-Life, like the agent guy.
100%. He's the G-Man, dude, 100%.
Like, you know? So he's there kind of running it. And, of course, Kidman, you know, by this point, because, you know, there's that point in Evil Within 1 when you're getting towards the end of the game, you're like, oh, wait a second, is Kidman even good or something like that? Like, who is this? You know, she's not the rookie. She's sitting in here and so on like that, you know. And this point now she's like almost like your I don't know, like Naomi or Mei Ling calling in like on your, you know, your mission as you go inside here and whatnot. But yeah, as you kind of go in deep, you also meet the rest of these Mobius team guys, which, you know, you initially just see him as pictures on the wall, like, okay, here you go find these guys. And there's all sorts of different ones you meet, and a lot of times they're always just hanging out in like a save room and whatnot, and they might have some side missions for you and so on. One thing I do notice is something about like the dialogue in this game. When people talk, everybody shakes their head like this. Like you can almost count on it. Like every like 10 seconds, the character will do this. Like, and every single one of them does it. Even like Sebastion does it. It's like, and after a while, I could not help but just you'd see it every single time.
Yep.
So it's like the weirdest like repeat like talking thing.
And that's the byproduct of the in-engine animation and whatnot, because that does happen quite a bit throughout and it's a stark difference to the actual pre-rendered cutscenes, because pre-rendered cutscenes in this game are just wonderful, dude. Like I love them. But to go from like a dialogue like Mass Effect style where you're talking one-on-one with a character or whatever, and the camera's flipping back and forth, and you have your, you know, set choices or whatever, and then it like morphs into a pre-rendered cutscene, it's night and day difference. Like, you know, like no, there's definitely two. But I just remember after seeing that head shake and then like noticing of every single character, it was like you could almost like count it. Like you'd be like at 10 seconds later, it's gonna happen again, you know. And I just thought that was kind of funny.
But yeah, you start finding all these different people and so on like that, and they start leading you around. They start kind of telling you more about sort of the mission that they were all sent in on here and so on like that. Some of them don't make it, of course, and you find them later on, and some of them have even transformed into like the creatures. And actually, I was gonna say, speaking of transform, did you find there was a lady in like chapter 4 when you run around town where you come into her house because she's like screaming or whatnot like that, and you have to kill a couple of guys outside, and then you go in, she's like, oh, like my husband or like boyfriend or whatever's missing, he transformed and whatnot. I don't know. I'm just gonna try to lock myself in here. And when you're looking at her, she's like partially kind of getting messed up and so on. I thought that was kind of a cool little scene right there.
Yep. No, the handful of like smaller little side quests like that I thought were really tasteful. That one in particular, I did enjoy that one.
Yeah, you just see like these people are slowly turning and they have really no idea what's going on here.
Yep.
But you meet all kinds of characters and so on like that, and more of them kind of later on. Like there's the one dude, the computer tech dude. Oh God, what the hell is that dude's name?
Was that O'Neill?
O'Neill, the black dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he has an interesting one too, where like he wants you to always go back into like, because they have also this transportation system. So you got the town of Union, and then you hack into like a computer, and then you go to this like underground thing that connects to all different sections of the town, because they're all split apart again, like almost like Inception style and whatnot, just floating around. And so he kind of sends you on these errands going through there and whatnot. And there's one about like maybe about the third time you kind of meet him, where he's like, okay, I found a way out. He's like, wait, what you gotta do? You gotta go find this one for me and send me through, and I'll give you like, I'll let you kind of know how it works or whatnot, And for some reason, I remember I think it says something like it has like a 1 in 8th chance that you're gonna make it or something like real low odds.
Yeah.
So it's just Sebastion goes, oh, I wonder if he made it.
Yeah. And to touch on these like middle point areas that we go to and whatnot, this reminds me so much of Chronos. Those like areas where you like, you'd break through the fray or whatever, and warp over somewhere else or whatever. So the very similar to the first game, like the world is still fracturing, like everything is starting to break apart, and like, like you'll like look up in the sky and like you'll see these like chunks of the city just like floating off in the distance and whatnot, so like one of the very first things you're supposed to do is, like you notice, was it the courthouse or the church or something? Off they're floating in the sky. You're like, well, how am I supposed to get there? It's like, oh, you take the computer terminal. What, you didn't know? Yep. But I do enjoy this. I like being able to go to, so you, like Spence says, like you go to the computer terminal, you like load into this like middle, like, I don't know, like purgatory area, like I guess, like I don't know, it's just like these like old hallways of like maintenance tunnels and shit like that. Like it's a really weird place, but more or less what you're looking for is like individual exits, to get to these other places or whatever. And the way that it plays into O'Neill's story too, I assume that's the guy's name, the black man, Mobius dude. So he's like this like scientist, like server tech nerd type dude or whatever, like in like Spence says, like he's trying to like create the device to be able to get himself the hell out of STEM, and so you have to go like back and forth to this like nether area, where you're like turning on power, you got to turn on the the servers or whatever, so he can work in the real world, which is still a virtual world. It's very convoluted, but yeah, the way that man's whole quest line works and his side content and all that was like actually a lot of fun. I did enjoy following through with all that, plus you get an achievement at the end, so
yeah, you get achievement, and you also get more guns, ammos, and all that stuff. It's all well worth it. You don't feel like none of the side quests in this one here ever feel like they're taking you away from like getting something really important done, because nothing's worse than you do a side quest in a game and then it gives you like nothing useful, and you're like, well, because then it almost like it breaks your faith in like the game making, where you're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to do any more of your side quests, if this is what you're going to give me. Where this one, there's not very many of them, and when they are there, that's like everything's helpful, and they're not that much out of your way, so you don't feel bad about doing any of the stuff. So but his one's interesting because you can save him or not save him. I guess if you just didn't do the quest, I don't know what you'd get for that, but the weird thing is you never run when you come back out of Mobius way later in the game or out of STEM. He's not there. I hope he made it. Where'd he go? Knowing him, he probably sent himself like, I'm not going to go into the Mobius laboratory. I'm going to send myself way far away.
Yep. Yeah, and Sebastian even says that, like as he's leaving, like you watch him like, go sit in the bathtub or whatever, and he's like prepping himself and he's like, all right, Sebastian, I'll see you on the other side, and then just like Sebastian like makes this comment like, I hope he made it. As you're leaving.
Yeah, as I said, and I think there's a note there you find that for some reason speaks of it like it has like a real low like rate of being able to get back out. So but yeah, you meet that, and then you got Hoffman and whatnot there, and then I guess when you get a little bit farther in the game, you like totally wake up in a completely different area where you're like literally in like an outside forest section and whatnot, and there's a lady standing there with a gun and everything like that. She's like, you better stand up and get ready. We got zombies coming in. And it's very reminiscent of like the scene in Resident Evil 4 when you find Lewis for the first time and whatnot. You got to defend that little house, which those scenes never get old. And I don't know what it is. Like a survival horror game, it's like, I don't get burnt down on those. They're not like kind of like the on-rail shooting stuff that's like kind of cool the first couple times you see it. And then after a while, you're like, okay, here's one of these scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Those ones there, they're always like, okay, this is cool. Well, let's set this up, and I can set my traps up with like my arrows and whatnot like that. And
No, I love horde sections. Like horde modes are always a blast. This game totally pulls it off, totally fine too. Lots of fun.
But you find her, and she's almost like one of the most interesting characters you find down there because she doesn't seem the same as like the other Mobius kind of agents and so on like that. And the fact that like, you're in this whole new area. And she's like, we got to go to like my secret base or whatnot like that. We're going to go through this kind of outdoor section that looks completely different than what you've been looking at so far, and it's daytime and everything like that. And you make your way towards that there, and you start seeing those flamethrower guys for the first time too, which I think are kind of interesting ones.
Yep. Yeah. Flamethrower guys.
A cool look.
Design wise, dude, I love these like dudes like masks and like these like they remind me of like Nemesis almost, like the way that their like body is designed, like it's so sick. I enjoyed those.
So you got those guys kind of building up. I will say though, it's like I feel like when they kind of show the first flamethrower guy and then he takes the mask off and you realize it was one of the Mobius agents that was turning or something like that. I was like, that's kind of interesting, but sometimes I feel it's more interesting when that thing was just a straight monster and you never knew what it was. It was the same way that like when I played that DLC of like the Keeper, and it's like they gave like the Keeper like a backstory and he was looking for like, I don't know, his daughter or something like that. It's like, well, no. Then he's not nearly as scary anymore. Now he's just like, another psycho guy on like a crusade.
So early on in this game, I text you and I said, bro, I swear to God that there is an ex-Kojima dev on this team because of the way that framing happens, the way that they do camera shifts, this, that, and the other. Dude, this character in particular, the very like the flamethrower dude that you come across, like the Fury, hello, like what? Like the framing of this dude, like the way he pulls off his like everything about it, I'm like, it has to be, like, and it's probably not, it's probably just me just shoving two things together and trying to make it work, but like I swear to God, dude, like there has to be an ex-Kojima dev on here that was in filmography or something on Kojima's team, because the parallels, the one-to-oneness of like so many scenes in this game, I'm just like, it has to be, but no. This character in particular I thought was sick. I thought he was awesome.
And the boss battle that you have with him is pretty sweet. It's amazing how long a reach that guy's flamethrower has, because he can get you from like across the room if you don't move.
Yep.
They always put all kinds of cool traps and so on that you can use that mostly I never find until I'm done battling the boss. I go, oh, that would have been cool to use. Well, didn't see that.
So this I'm trying to remember. Is this in the basement where you got to flip the switches for the sprinkler system or whatever? Is that the fight?
It does have. Okay. Yeah, it has the sprinkler system in there and so on like that.
So I stun locked him in that fight. I got it to, so there's two switches in that room and you can hit either or and it sets off the sprinkler system or whatever. And I caught him just like in this weird where he was stuck up against a pillar and like what literally was stuck, like just couldn't move forward or whatever. Like he was in a walk animation, but he wasn't moving. And like I would just flip the switch, like the sprinkler system would hit him and he'd go, like doing that type of thing. And like I would just sit there, just pop, 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 pop. Like sprinkler would turn off. Like if it gets stuck against the wall, just walking. Like flip the switch again. Rinse and repeat. So unfortunately, my experience in that boss fight was like very simple, like very easy. But like I can imagine, like if you actually played that, like the to that arena and whatnot, it'd probably be actually a really cool fight.
Yeah, exactly. There is all sorts of set pieces there, and so I just did the classic. I froze him with like the bow and arrow, then like launched a rocket arrow at, or a grenade arrow at him, and then did that a couple more times until he died. Nice. I will say another interesting thing too is whenever they have bosses in this game, like later on in the game, you'll actually see those characters like for some reason reappear. Which is because it's in the Evil Within, it kind of makes kind of sense that they could kind of have that. But like they'll just be like in like the open world areas where you're like, oh shit, there's like a couple of those flamethrower guys running around. Like now I got to take those guys on. Or there's another lady that we never even talked about. There's this one boss where this lady's got a bunch of blades going on her and almost like chainsaws and so on. And she's like really tall and huge and so on like that. And you have to kill her in front of this courthouse or something like that. And apparently you get achievement if you skip that battle. I spaced it. I saved it there. I was like, when I get to chapter 5 or whatever the heck that is, I'm going to get that one. And then like I went past and like, oh yeah, I didn't get that one. Oh, okay. So somehow, some way, I think you just run towards the door or something like that, and maybe it skips it. But then like that lady will appear later, like in some of the open worlds too, where you have to there'll be a couple of her running around.
Yeah. And as much as because this is also something that Spence and I were texting about, like, because like. In general, I would more or less complain about things like that, where we do have repeat. Like I complained about it in Chronos, for example, that's
Chronos literally utilized the same boss battle. Right. Just like they had like one alternative feature. It's like it's kind of the same thing again.
Right. At least here, at least it's tasteful and it's not overdone. It's well not overdone. Like when this monster that Spencer's talking about is like very, very tall. It's very like Japanese doll porcelain looking, face style, long black hair, large big saw blade on one hand or whatever. Like the boss fight itself is like very bombastic. It's a lot of fun or whatever. And like when I was exploring in the world, a chapter or two later, and then all of a sudden you hear that like you hear that little laugh, and it's just like, and it just triggers you, because it's like, oh, no, dude, I killed that thing. I fought that thing like 3 chapters ago. I killed it, and then it's just showing up as a regular enemy at that point. Super, super good, and I love that one in particular because like you have to put a shit ton of damage down on that thing to take it out, or like what I ended up figuring out is like lightning bolts, especially with the chain, lightning and stuff like that. Like lightning bolts took it out pretty quick. But
yeah, no, it's like this is one of those few games where like when they appear again, well, I feel because they appear again, they don't just appear like a boss battle. It's like, oh no, like they're just out there in the wild, and you if you want to fight them, cool. If you don't, that's okay. But it almost gives you a completely different tactic that you could use on them.
Yep. So I'd say like kind of at this point, so we kill that serial killer man, and I don't remember the how, what, where, when, why, but eventually we run into and we meet the priest dude. God damn it, what the hell was his name? That is Father Theodore Wallace.
Yeah.
And this man, crazy. This is where the plot like really starts to dial up and whatnot. Because this whole time it's like, we're on this path to go kill Stefano, and like now Stefano's dead. We killed Stefano, he's done, and like now everything is revolving around this Theodore character and whatnot. And I love the religious ties, here. Just like the church ties, the like heavy Christianity, the blah, blah, like, and it's not Christianity, but like, you could tell like the tone of what they're going for and whatnot. And I love this character and what he's all about, I think he's sick. So
yeah, no, this is a cool villain that you kind of go up against here. And this kind of takes on like the second act of the game, I guess you would almost sort of say. And then this is even when you are tagging along with Torres, who is pretty much the mercenary chick that you're kind of with, who's kind of like the main muscle of like the Mobius section. And just all the things you kind of go there, and the things you also even learn throughout some of the stories are like, when Taurus has to explain like why she makes the sacrifice to make sure that you survive, it's because she's like, she was the one that went into your house and took Lily out in the middle of the night and then burned it down.
Yep.
You know, the use for there. So she felt kind of responsible and whatnot.
Yep. Yeah, and this is this is absolutely where revelations start happening. You know, like this is where the plot really starts to thicken. You know, and like start to make a bit more sense. It starts to get a lot more focused. You know, now it's all about, you know, we understand now that like Father Theodore is like the actual threat of, you know, Union, more or less. He wants to utilize your daughter Lily as the core, you know, so like he can ascend into whatever he's trying to ascend into, you know, to like more or less like control the world and whatnot. Now the funny thing is about Mobius, about STEM, about these characters is like, you know, and especially like the G-Man character, you know, like the big bad corporate dude and whatnot at the end. Why? Like in a virtual world, like why? You know, like, I mean, they want all this power, they want all this control, they want all this stuff, you know, and like, and they're gonna do it in this virtual world, you know, and like, but what effect does that have on the real world? Like, I just like really don't understand, other than like immortality and like unlimited power in a power fantasy dreamlike state. Like, I mean, like what is? Again, there's
maybe it's gonna it's one of those ones I kind of think about that too, because there is a lot of this stuff in here that like I feel sometimes you kind of play it more just for like the straight game experience, and you know, because some of the stuff is like it's almost thinking too complicated, but then at the same time it makes it feel like, wait, what are they going with? Maybe they're trying to expand this out to this is just like the trial runs, and then they'll expand it to like the whole world and so on. But I don't know exactly where this weird control is.
So something that I'll tell our audience, that if you go into this experience the same way I did, where you treat it more like, and again, I think it's the way that I played it. I think it was that 2 to 3 hour per night, 5 days, you know, like straight type play experience. If you play it that way, this game very much feels like a roller coaster style like TV show, where every episode is its own concealed little capsule. You know, it's a fucking cool ass ride through that and whatnot. But when you stack this capsule and this capsule and this capsule and this capsule, and you try to get to the end piece, it's like there's still something missing. You know, like there's still. But these individual sections of this game are they're thrill rides, dude. They're so much fun, and I struggle now, like trying to think back of like the totality of that experience and like trying to individually piece out like individual chunks of this game. It's hard for me to do, but I remember specifically in the moment of these sections, like was having a blast, because I got the transcripts back and forth with you about the whole time. I'm just like, dude, this game, you know. So I may be doing a piss poor, you know, explanation of why I enjoy this game so much, but I think it's one of those games where you just got to experience it, you know. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. There's just so much kind of going on, and you know, sometimes it is that one where, like, you know, sometimes the gameplay, you're almost more enjoying that first and foremost, and then when you know some of the stuff there, you know, just even gets a little bit weird and wacky, you just kind of go along with it and so on. You know, but there's still the core characters that you keep running into and so on, like that still have like an impact, and nobody feels like they're kind of wasted there. You know, it seems like at the end of the day, you leave all those guys behind no matter what. Some of those people you don't even call back up on the radio again. I don't even know what happened to like that first guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You know, but as you go on, there's like, you run this one boss at one point, which is like this like almost like melted candle wax, white ooze looking creature and so on, and you just kind of kill it, get it out of the way, and keep going. Don't think much of it. But it turns on, like, way later on that this is also down here is where Myra, who is Sebastian's wife this whole time, who for some reason, when they thought they lost Lily, like, left and, you know, went on her own way, you know, and so on like that. And she's down here trying to control things in her own style. And she's part of, like, the core mission that's set up by Kidman and all this stuff here. And just adds even more to like the interesting complexity of it, you know.
I actually enjoyed this. I like this Myra character because you hear about Myra and you hear about Lily, you know, in the first game quite a bit, you know. for her to show up, because like Spence says, like you do come across this kind of random monster, out of nowhere, and it's just like this big like. It's a big cum monster, dude. I mean, like,
big old goo monster looking at you, shoot in the face.
Yeah, it's interesting, but like understanding the Myra this whole time, like, so from the very onset of this game, we see Sebastion like wallowing in his own misery, drinking his life away because his wife is gone and he lost his daughter. Daughter's dead, wife is
and
missing.
he lost his job.
Right, and he lost his job. So again, this is like very, very targeted on Sebastion's growth and in terms of him as a character and whatnot. Oh shit, my wife's alive. Oh shit, Lily's here. She's protecting Lily, like she doesn't want me to take him or take her and blah blah blah. Lily is, Myra is just like on this just like war path to just ensure that her daughter is safe and whatnot, and a lot of this has to do with this character Theodore, and a lot of their backgrounds and their interactions and whatnot that you see through that radio device, as you're kind of getting through like the last couple chapters of the game. Again, very convoluted. There's a lot to talk about surrounding all that I'm probably going to slaughter. So again, this is more of a like go experience it type situation, but very good, and again, like as a capsule on the ride itself, like was having a blast, like understanding all this and getting through it. Super cool. But Myra's for her final fight, more or less, so like there comes to a point like where we finally catch up to the priest dude and whatnot, like we have our fight with him, defeat him and whatnot. Myra comes out of the out of the woodworks and whatever, and like it's actually a really cool scene. I love talking to Theodore, like at the end of his boss fight or whatever, and like he's like literally about to kill you, like in that cutscene or whatever, and then just like out of nowhere there's just like large fucking like spike just like pops out from his chest, and just like blood sprays all over Sebastion, and the priest dude's all like like, whoa, what's happening, he turns around and there's Myra, like Myra shows up finally or whatever, and then they have like their little bout, where they smack each other around a little bit or whatever, and then Myra just like just shoves that freaking spike like just right through the bottom of Theodore's like chin or whatever, and just right out the top of his head, and just like sprays everywhere and stuff.
He just needed to be finished off properly right there.
So Myra kills Theodore, and now it's like Sebastion's like trying to convince Myra, like, look, we're together again, we're a family, like all the evil is gone, please just come out of the simulation with me now, and blah blah blah, and she just won't do it, to the point of getting so upset that you're trying to take Lily that she turns into a boss herself. And this boss fight, bro, so cool, dude. I love this because this is classic Resident Evil. This is classic, like final boss where it's like you're in an arena, the boss is on one end of the arena or whatever, and is static, and it's just got weak points that you got to shoot and whatnot.
It's got big old glowing orbs that you got to burst.
Very, very classic, third person survival horror. But super fun. I enjoyed that fight quite a bit.
Now, real quickly, going back to that Theodore one real quick, was his boss battle, I can't remember if this was part of his boss battle or whatnot, but is that the one where like he takes you through like the main character or the main villains of like
yes.
of Evil Within 1? Because I thought because I totally spaced on that, like I forgot about that part, but that's so cool. I mean, the fact that you kill that guy at the very beginning of Evil Within 1 is so amazing, and then the fact that it sets you off, it's like, oh, here's a keeper, so at least you get a keeper comes back into it, and you got to battle him, and I think he comes back to life a couple times before you do that. And then it throws you in with Laura, who was Revik's sister, the lady who got burned in the barn. And whatnot like that. And granted, she will, if she does touch you, that is one of the one-hit kills. But this time she's not nearly as bad. You just can blast away at her and call it good.
Yep. No,
I thought that was such a cool callback. It just does it like in a gauntlet style where you go up right through all these ones.
Especially when the cutscene happens, because it's 1-to-1 of the original game. When you go down that hallway, you bust through those 2 doors or whatever, and that's the scene, is just like Sebastion like busting through those 2 doors, looking down the hallway, and then if you've played the original game, you'll know exactly what's happening, exactly where you're at. Dude with the chainsaw, fat butcher dude, is like chasing you, and like you run in, and like it's literally 1-to-1. Like you trip over the same gurney, you fall out, and all that. And I love it, dude. I loved it when Sebastion trips over that thing, and he like turns around, and he's like looking back at where the dude's supposed to be, and he's not there. And he like flips back around, and at the elevator at the end of the hall that he's trying to get to, like now that's where the butcher is now. And then Sebastian's like whole just like, fuck this,
not this time.
I'm changing reality now, like, and getting his confidence. And, oh, dude, it was so good. Just picking up that chainsaw, just cutting through that. Oh, dude, it was so good.
Well, I felt like he really embodied the player, where it's just one of those ones like, dude, I'm not scared. Like, this is stupid. Like, we're gonna end this right now, and that's what he does. And it's such like a great way to like relieve like a terrible section kind of in that first one, especially for the first time we kind of played it and something like that, where it's just like, dude, if this is what the game's going to be, are you serious? I'm going to deal with this kind of guy, gets those stupid one-hit kill. Yeah. And if he's finished off, it's just, it's such a magical experience right there.
Yep. No, I very, very much appreciate it, because it was so tasteful. It was so tastefully done. Like a lot of games can, like, especially in a sequel, can like touch on the game prior to it or whatever. But a lot of them aren't successful at it. A lot of them just lean too heavily into like, it's just like fan servicey, and like I don't mind fan service to an extent, but in this particular game, the way they went about it, because I didn't expect it. It just straight up, I did not expect it. And like for it to just show up, and it's like, oh, the keepers, oh, Lord, like, oh, like, dude, this is sick, like this is bad. So yeah, super cool.
Yeah, and I feel it's like one of those ones that works like both ways. Even if for some reason you played this game and didn't play the first one, which would be kind of weird, but like, somebody's probably done that, is that's just still a cool gauntlet of like, hey, at least you guys see like some really good battles from the first one right there, all together and for a cool scene. But getting past that, I guess past the Theodore one, you get to Myra's battle and whatnot like that. And you finally get to like, there's just like, Myra's just built up this giant like white area, which I guess makes sense why the cover has that whiteness. He's just got Myra all over him.
Yep.
And so on top of this giant, mountain up there, there's like your house is sitting there for some reason. That's like the dead center of everything here in town and whatnot. Your house that burnt down, and you got to climb up there, and you find all little story segments and so on like that there. But after you defeat Myra, it's almost like she is almost sort of relieved in a weird way, and is allowing you to kind of take Lily and just like, well, let's all get out of here. And of course she can't go, but you're able to finally grab Lily and be like, yeah, we're getting out of here right now. And as this kind of goes on back at Mobius, the G-Man kind of realizes like, oh, never mind, our man's like turned now. He's trying to take our battery out of there.
Yep.
So Kidman, you got to pull the trigger on him, and of course she says no way. And they have an interesting like parallel action back and forth where she has to fight her way out and like literally kills all sorts of guards and so on like that. And gets to the point where she's gonna bring Sebastion back and whatnot. And even when that guy, the G-Man, thinks he has the the whole plan, it's like, yep, I put a bomb in the side of all you guys. She's like, nope, I cut it out right here out of my neck.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love this this scene in particular, and just a comment, like the last third of this game is so cinematic. There's so many cutscenes, there's so many just cinematic, bombastic things going on. This one in particular, I loved. Because when you're in STEM, like you're playing Sebastion, you have your daughter, you're like carrying her out, you're trying to get out, and it's like, it's Sebastion's struggle, just like trying to get out of STEM. Meanwhile, the game's also flipping you over into Kidman's shoes, and she's trying to get out of, like the main facility that she's in with Mobius and whatnot. Meanwhile, like fighting agents and things like that. The back and forth of this whole section was so well paced, and it was so well done. The way that like Sebastion, like there's like the one scene that I remember in particular. Sebastion has Lily in his hands, and like it's so simple. He's like just busting through a door with his shoulder or whatever. But the way that they filmed it, like him busting through that door, rolling into Kidman's shoulder at that point of her entering into a door at the same time, like, and just the back and forth, the way that they flip it. I can't talk highly enough about the filmography and like the way that they framed everything in this game. It's gorgeous. Like it's
the in a sense the video part shot so well, or however you want to define it, and just that kind of like that leading up to being like, okay, Sebastion gonna make it, it's like we got a survival horror game here. It could go many different directions, and then he's eventually able to get there. And he comes out of the machine, and of course, he comes out. He's like, "Well, wait a second. Where's Lily at? She's not here." Pretty much Kidman's killed like everybody else in the side Mobius. Even the G-Man guy ends up dying up there too. And then he gets out, and you realize that right in the dead center where all those bathtub type things are is the station where Lily's at. And she's in like the center battery place that Revik was for his brain back in the first one. And so they pop her out, and she's in there. She's totally fine. It's not like you're going to open her up and it's going to be like Dom's wife or something like that, and Gears of War. Where like she seems fine, but no, she's not, one of those kind of moments. But he kind of breaks her out, and, him and Kidman all kind of get out there and leave the place behind. And it kind of has like, in a weird way for like, game, it has kind of a super happy ending. I mean, Myra didn't make it, so I guess it can't be perfect, but like, the way it leaves is kind of weird because it almost feels like, well, okay, I got Kidman now. There's your new mom.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is one comment. Not a lot of characters survive this game intentionally. You lose a lot of the Mobius characters for sure. You lose
even like the poor one with Hoffman, because there's a scene where you have to cross this fiery area, and Hoffman's got this big old like satellite receiver thing that for some reason blocks the fire, and she's carrying it as you fight off these fire monsters. Pretty much they have fire zombie things coming at you, and right when you get to the tail end, the machine starts like breaking down and whatnot, and she pretty much falls down. Fire monster's coming after her, and she tells you like, you just got to go. This thing's gonna cut out any second now, and we're gonna be engulfed in flames. Yeah, that was actually a really cool scene too. I did enjoy that one because the whole premise behind that is like, so at this point we're going after Theodore, and Theodore's like locked himself in the church more or less, and like set up like flame barrier, across the land or whatever, Yeah.
And Hoffman needed to create. So Hoffman's like the psychologist, super techie nerd brain type character or whatever. So she had to create that that device that like basically it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, like with Gandalf with his like the light, like in the forest and shit, like
yeah, that's pretty much it. So you can pass through this area. But yeah, no, pretty much all those characters, none of them I don't think make it, to tell you the truth. I don't think there's a single Mobius other than O'Neill or whatever, who may or may not have gone through there. We don't really know. But all those guys get lost. And
But so this is what I was curious about. Okay, so everybody, okay, we get the happy ending, like Sebastion makes it out, we get Lily, Kidman's there, like we drive off in the distance, happy sunset ending, blah blah blah, and then like right at the end of the game, like credits roll or whatever, and then you get post credit scene or whatever, and it's back in the Mobius chamber at STEM, and it's like flowing into the the camera's panning in, and then it goes up to a screen monitor or whatever, and all of a sudden this code starts writing, saying reinitializing blah blah blah, so like obviously the developers are just leaving the door open for a potential for another sequel or whatever. But at that point, like, okay, so the core is gone. So how is that restarting? Like to begin with, everybody in Mobius is dead at this point. Like, or at least all the important people are dead at this point. So like I didn't really know what they were getting at with this like restart. To the whole STEM system and whatnot. It's like, unless the only thing that I can think, and it's something that I was very, very surprised, and maybe I missed it in notes, and maybe I missed it in some flavor text here and there, but like, what happened to Revik from the first game? Because like he leaves at the end of the first game, like he
because he takes over. What's
possesses
Lauren or Leslie?
Whatever that character's name is. but it's not re-brought up here. So it's like, that's where my thoughts went, like seeing those computers turn back on at the end is like, oh, maybe he's back, or something.
Yeah, something like that. No, that does make sense because I kind of forgot about that, because it is kind of a bummer that there hasn't been like an Evil Within 2 or 3, and the fact that Tango Studios kind of disbanded or whatnot like that. Shinji Mikami went somewhere else, so there's a lot of things that kind of went away there. I know that there's that Ghost game, whatever, Tokyo.
Yeah, Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah, Tokyo Ghostwire that was initially, they always say like initially that was kind of geared towards being Evil Within 3, and then they switched it to that and so on like that. They probably just kind of hit it in there too, that maybe that's what it was and they were going to try something different.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you did an Evil Within 3, I think the thing to do is that I feel like Sebastion's story's kind of complete in a sense.
Yeah,
I mean, you could pull him back in if you want, but there's no real reason. I think Kidman should be the main character of a third one. I think that would be kind of the cool way, and you could almost give it like a Code Veronica Resident Evil style, where it's like she's going off to take care of like the other section of Mobius, and really eliminate them completely. And whether it's going like the European part or something like that. But I think Kidman would be a cool character to play as being like, no, this is your main character now in the third one. You played as her a little bit in the DLC. You play as her a little bit towards the tail end of number 2. Why not use her as like the main character? I don't think that'd be too far stretched.
Yeah, no. So I was thinking that, or like imagine Lily at age 15 or 16.
Yeah, you do one of those. Yeah, you kind of like the way that they had it, where in Resident Evil 8 in the DLC.
Yeah. With
you
Rose
played as Rose she's older and so on like that. No, that'd be a cool way to go about it as well too. But it is just a bummer for the fact that Evil Within 2 is such a perfect game. Like, as I said, by the time I was done playing, I'm like, I don't think I can think of a single thing that I could complain about. I mean, you could maybe get real nitpicky if anything, but like, there's nothing major. Like, literally everything in this game is like, it's great from beginning to end.
Yeah, I literally, I mean, like this was the perfect game to start off 2026 on, like, because it sets the tone, for the rest of the year for me anyways. It's just like, all right, we have a baseline of like this isn't, I'm not going to call this a 10 out of 10 experience, like, I mean, there's better horror games out there for certain, like there's a handful of like pacing things. There's some plot holes, that like I still can't quite wrap my head around. But again, I think if you take this game and you think about it in terms of like a Breaking Bad series, a Sopranos type series, where you're taking episode to episode and like enjoying it in that type of medium, this game is the 10 out of 10 experience. But in general, comparatively to the first game, they fixed literally everything that I had a problem with the first game, which was pretty minimal to begin with. I wholly recommend this game to like anybody, So,
I do think that Evil Within 2 probably, I would say, as far as modern survival horror games go, it is kind of one of the pinnacle ones. I would say in that kind of era, it's like I can't think of too many other things that I can't think of much that I'd even think of that. Probably, more than this, sometimes it's just that thing where it's just like, sometimes you'll like a Resident Evil 1 more just because it's got the Resident Evil lore and all the characters continuing over, where like when you have something brand new, like, Evil Within, something like that, you're not nearly as invested or connected to them the same way. But, no, it's like gameplay wise, it's perfect. As I said, I could not think of anything wrong with that there, And then story-wise, it's really solid. I mean, there might be some like weird plot holes and weird like putting things together and trying like things like that, and maybe a little bit too many cutscenes towards the end. Like once again, if you want to get nitpicky, you can kind of say that sort of stuff. But at the same time, though, it's like the experience is so solid.
Yeah, and it's paced well. Like there was a point where I started to hit about chapter 10. And I text you and I was like, how many chapters is this game? Because like about there, I was hitting around like hour 6-ish, like 5.5, 6-ish, and you're like 17. And I'm like, oh God, like, cause I was thinking at the time, I was like, fuck, I got like 7 more of these to go through.
Yeah, I'm only barely half. I'm only a little halfway over.
But really, no, I mean, yeah, if I played on a higher difficulty, sure, it probably would have extended this length out quite a bit. But to land right about 9 hours on a first run in a casual playthrough or whatever, like totally fine. Like I'd argue if you're playing on normal, probably count this to be a 10 or 12 hour game if I were to guess.
Yeah, well, I feel like you do even more exploring and try to get some more stuff and so on like that. But sometimes when you play on higher difficulties, you actually skip more because you're not doing as much of that stuff because it's just easier to keep running. But yeah, no, I was actually kind of surprised too because for some reason in my mind I was thinking this game was going to end up being like closer to 15 hours, and then I was like, when I was like saw the time, I was like, oh, well, yeah, just a little shy under 9 hours. Okay, like wasn't expecting that as much.
I think it should be noted, though, there is no way that this is a 9-hour game with cutscenes. There's no possible way. I'm pretty sure that that's clocking just game time, like actual play time, because like the cutscenes alone, there's got to be at least probably over an hour, maybe 2 hours of cutscenes in this game. Like there's a lot.
That would make sense because on my PlayStation it said something like 27 or 28 hours and that's technically 2 gameplays through. Yeah. So yeah, that would probably make sense then.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of. What did I end up at? Yeah, so mine's 10 hours, 10 and a half, like total playtime on Steam. So in my game clocked at 850 or whatever. So yeah, that seems about right. About an hour and a half of cutscenes or so.
Yeah,
I really didn't leave the app open much. Like if I was playing it or if I was clocking game time, I was actually playing it. So
yeah, so. Interesting, yeah, but as I said, I think this is one of those ones that's like it's a high bar recommendation. You should play the first one just to kind of get initiated into the story and all that kind of stuff. Though I know the first one might be a little bit of a struggle for certain people.
Yeah,
that's the thing about the first one. The first one you can't just recommend that to anybody. You kind of got to be really into survival horror games first and foremost. I think the second one, other than the fact that it's a sequel, is actually almost kind of a good gateway, like survival horror game too. Yeah. Once again, disinclude the fact that it's a sequel, but No,
I'd say if you have access to the first game, absolutely play it. But if you don't, I would just say like a story recap on YouTube and then jumping into this would be extremely helpful to a new player. I don't think that the STEM concept and what's really going I think that would go over people's heads if they jumped right into this. Like I don't think people would have a fucking clue of what is actually going on. So probably story recap on YouTube and then dive into this would be proficient. But it's a wonderful game.
But check out some Evil Within. You can practically get on anything because they pretty much just give this game out for free. Sadly, it's like kind of like bottom of the barrel for like Bethesda. I feel like it's kind of a bummer that they treat these games kind of like that. But like it's either you get them on Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, or they go on sale for like $5.
Yep.
Like
exactly.
It's one of those ones. But the games themselves are way better than what they're like sold off as. But check out both the Evil Within and especially the Evil Within 2. It's just it just adds to the experience. You play the first one and then you get in the second one. It's almost like you just got you earned like a reward for like how much you kind of went through the first one. And even though that game's still great for what it is, that second one's so good. And hopefully someday they'll put another one out. I know that like who knows where the heck this thing's shuffled at. It's probably going to be in like Microsoft's vault because I think they're the ones that technically own it.
Yeah.
Now, so. It could be one of those games like Parasite Eve that gets stuck in a goofy limbo that we'll never really be able to get like another one, at least not anytime soon. Because if I had to guess, if Shinji Mikami, whatever the heck he goes on to next, he's going to have to start up something brand new again.
Yeah. And the way that this one ends, I'm wholly fine with it as a narrative and plot. I think it ended well. It leaves up in a little bit of like tension, a little bit of hangover, oh shit, is Mobius turning back online? But no, I hope we do get to see a third part of this at some point in the future. I'm not gonna hold my breath though.
Well, realistically, this game actually concludes nicely for like a two-parter, like 2 games, kind of like The Last of Us. Like it's like one of those ones like you don't really need any more there. I mean, I still want to see like just like the grizzled version of Ellie where she's like 56 years old and she's missing an eye. Don't ever explain it. Just she has an eye patch on, nothing else. She's sitting at the edge of the bar smoking like a cigar or something like that, and be like, "Death. What do y'all know about death?" I mean, I want that version, but I don't know if they're gonna make that. But Evil Within 2 kind of ends that way, where it's like it's good. You're solid. You don't need any more. It's more like, it sounds weird, it's gameplay wise, I would love to see more of this game. I think that's like the biggest takeaway. Story wise, I think if that's as far as it goes, that's cool. It's just the game plays so good.
I know. I'm actually really surprised there's not a mercenary style mode, especially for the semi-openness of this game. Like imagine like a mercenaries mode, like in the town.
Yeah, because you could just do, because I think there's like 3 stages you could pretty much make out of it that would be sweet. 'Cause, I mean, I'll go and say this: I think that actually Evil Within's gameplay actually outshines all the modern Resident Evil ones in like that kind of section. You know what I mean? Like that's how good just like the gameplay itself is, and the upgrade system is like all that stuff's so dialed in that that's what I want to see. I would love to see more of. Is like, could you just, even if it was in a brand new game but it played the same way, you know, that would be pretty sweet. But yeah, we'll just see what happens next with Shinji and all the rest of the stuff from there, and all that. But yeah, until then, you can always at least enjoy the Evil Within. That's at least it's not hidden away. Yeah. It's one of those games that maybe in 30 years it might be a hard one to find or something like that, but I'm pretty sure that it will always just appear, like, as I said, just that easy fodder just to put out with the rest of the stuff, but beyond all that good stuff, look forward to more good old Silent Evil podcasts as we go down the list of all kinds of games, new, old, indie, all that kind of stuff. There's so many things to discover, and there's always more things down the rabbit hole you find. And if anybody's ever got anything that they're like, hey, you know what you should check out? Here's this one here. By all means, give us a holler. But till then, you can always check out the other Silent Evil podcasts, along with Old Man Orange on YouTube and Spotify. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I am Cameron.
And we'll see you some other time.